Good evening, everyone. My name is Ann Morris. I'm director of the North Carolina Dance Festival, and I'm really pleased to welcome you to our North Carolina Dance Festival Artist Talkback. This is one of the events we've planned for our 30th anniversary season. We started our anniversary last fall with a fully virtual season, and we've continued the celebration through this fall with a mix of live and virtual events, all designed to honor the history of the festival and lay a strong foundation for the future of dance in North Carolina. This season wouldn't be possible without the support of a grant from the National Endowment for the Arts and the support of the North Carolina Arts Council, Stearns Financial Group, Lincoln Financial Group, and Downtown Greensboro Incorporated. We were thrilled to get to produce our first live performance in 2 years on October 2nd. And if you weren't able to see that performance, we are streaming it on demand with artery.com. They're based in Winston-Salem. Information and tickets for that virtual performance are available on our website at danceproject.org/NCDF, and it will be available for streaming through November 29th. If you'd love more opportunities to watch dance and discuss it, please join us for our November 4th Virtual Dance Discovery Club. It's like a book club, but for dance. And in this first session, we'll be watching and interacting with dance by Charlotte choreographer Sarah Council. And the program is designed for those with lots of experience with dance, as well as those without much experience. The Zoom link for this free program is also on our website. But we're here tonight to hear directly from some of the artists involved in our live performance, and I'm thrilled to get to chat with them. If you're watching this live and you have questions for the performers, feel free to post them in the chat on Facebook at any point, or if you're watching from our website, you'll find a link to a Google form where you can submit questions along the way. So artists, let's get started with some introductions. I'd love for each of you to introduce yourself, let us know where you're based, which dance in the performance you were part of, and then if you'll share 3 words that describe how it felt to perform or share your work for a live audience in this show. So artists, if you'll open up your cameras. Yeah. All right, welcome to everyone. Let's start with Gavin and Vanessa from Stuart, Owen Dance.
Hi, everybody. I'm Vanessa Owen.
And I'm Gavin Stuart. We're the co-directors of Stuart Owen Dance.
We're based in Western North Carolina, right outside of Asheville.
Our 3 words are exhilarating, nostalgic, and calibrating.
Nice, thank you. And thanks for being here tonight. Kara, why don't you join us next?
Hey everyone, I'm Kara Hagan. I created the work Cygnus in the show, and though I had been based in Boone, I am for the moment in Akron, Ohio. And my 3 words are excited, grateful, and bittersweet.
All right, how about Aparna next?
Hey, I'm Aparna Keshavaya. I am based in Western North Carolina, west of Asheville. I'm a classical and contemporary Indian dancer. And I was involved in the Nymphosis Live piece in the collaboration with Atiba Rory. And my 3 words are fresh yet familiar.
Nice. All right, Virginia, you're up next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Virginia Dupont. I live in Greensboro, and I work both in Greensboro and Burlington. I am currently in the northeastern corner of the state, visiting my mother in my hometown. I was a part of Reforming, which was taking a piece of Jan Van Dyke's and reforming it to carry her legacy forward and creating a new work out of her previous works. And my 3 words would be bittersweet, nostalgic, and home.
Thank you. Jihan.
Hello, everyone. And I'm Jihan Zhang, and I'm from South Korea. And now I am in Raleigh. And I'm currently a residency artist in dance project. And my 3 words are exotic, excitement, and gratitude.
Thank you. And Tiffany.
Oh, sorry about that. My name is Tiffany Santero, and I am currently based in Pisgah Forest, North Carolina, near Asheville. And I was part of the of Flight Distance 1, the residency of Helen. And my 3 words are thankful, vulnerable, and explosive.
Nice, thank you. What a fun range of experiences, of words to describe that experience. It was, yeah, I mean, it's hard to boil it down to 3 words, but good job, good job. Let's hear a little bit about the works that were in this piece. I'd love to know, just sort of from each of you, what was the starting point for the work that we presented? Kara, will you start us off this time?
Sure. The starting point for Cygnus was the location. Battle Lake, Minnesota is a gorgeous natural space, and that lake is a very special place to me. I was introduced to it in 2017. I made the film in 2018 with a dear collaborator, and yeah, it's really just a ritual with, in, and for the lake.
It was such a beautiful setting. If any of the folks watching, they haven't seen it yet, I hope everybody will take advantage of the opportunity to see that work. Just so, what a stunning location. Yeah. Gavin and Vanessa, do you want to talk next about the starting place for yours?
Yeah, I'm gonna let Vanessa take this one.
Yeah, so this started as a solo for me in 2017, right when we moved to North Carolina. I had been recovering from an injury, and I was trying to figure out how to make work again on my body. And then shortly thereafter, I started workshopping it as a few different ideas, a trio, and then landed on this duet between the 2 of us. And we've toured it a lot, but we've had not very many opportunities to do it in North Carolina. I think just the only other time was at the Asheville Fringe, which was the first time we did it as a duet. So that was 2018. So this is the first time we've done it in North Carolina since 2018, which was really awesome. Yeah.
It's such a fun piece. Where did the seed of the idea come from?
Oh God, it's like so. It's a conglomerate of a lot of odd things, but mostly for me, it was a story that came to me when I found the dress, which is this bridesmaid's dress from 1969 that's like falling apart and gorgeous, but old and stinky. And so I saw the dress, and then I just like made a story immediately, and I was like, her name's Barb, and she's always the bridesmaid and never the bride, and she hates herself, and then but we need this other character who like loves himself, and she wants to love herself, and then we just like played with a lot of other ideas after that. But yeah, the dress, it's all about the dress.
And correct me if I'm wrong, there was a lot of research into you had been looking at ad campaigns from the 1950s, 60s, 70s.
Mm-hmm. For women,
looking at sort of this like what the ideal woman was based on what advertisements were in American advertisements were in those periods. And so there's this like contrast of her movement that's like very feminine and female, and then sort of shirking that away or like throwing it away and getting really, I don't know, slightly animalistic and a little sloppy, and sort of trying to find the contrast of like who we are as beings that that have to sort of deal with these like the ideals of what our genders and what we're being told to be, and then how we feel.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you. What he said.
Those are all her words. I just
Thank you. Yeah. Virginia, do you want to talk a little bit about reforming?
Sure. So we started this on Dance Project's youth company end of January, beginning of February. That's the best to my recollection. I don't remember exact dates. But we took phrase material from one of Jan's works called 5 Short Forms, and we taught them those phrases. And then she often worked with chant scores. So I pulled a chant score of hers from a completely different dance. And once they had sort of the feeling of the style of her movement and what she was interested and invested in terms of movement, we then gave them the chant score, hoping they had gleaned, maybe some commonality, cohesiveness from that type of movement, and then created their own chant scores. And you can fill in the blanks here. I know that they worked with Anne and Lauren to create a piece of their own. And then when this came about, we expanded upon that idea with the old guard and the young professionals. So 3 sort of generations, because the idea is that Jan's work not only lives on and the work she created in the time that she created it, but that it's a legacy, and that legacy moves forward, isn't only stuck in the past, but can continue in new and interesting and current relative ways.
Yeah, thank you. And that, I worked really closely on this project, and it was really a special one for me, having also danced with Jan for a couple of years and feeling really connected to her process as well. And the process of introducing our young students who, I think one of the 2 who ended up performing had met Jan as a very little child, but not really known her. And so to be able to introduce her to Jan's work in this way, and then bring some of our alumni into this, and of course, reconnecting with some of Jan's former company members, was really a special process. So I'm excited we got to pull it all together. Yeah. Jihan, why don't you go next?
My story starting from my background, such as an Asian culture. The original theme of my work was about old school methods related to the moon or nature. So throughout our history, the humans' daily lives have connected to the changing skies, especially the changing face of the moon. So I really try to connect the human's life and the power of nature. So this is my start point.
Great, thank you. Aparna, why don't you go next?
Yeah, for both the Nymphasis Live and the Kinkinikan, which is the collaboration, I think music was the starting point. For my solo, I had been, a chant that my father taught me when I was young, a Hindu chant, had been kind of running through my head for some reason. And I had been thinking about a piece that fits within a larger framework that isolates different emotions that are often in the stories told in my dance. And so this one was going to be centered around fear and shades of fear. We still are in the midst of a pandemic, but this was created last year. And I was thinking about starting to emerge, from the depths of that fear. Given the limited activities, I had been doing a lot of gardening and had seen praying mantises in my garden. And so this idea of a little creature being born into the world and how scary and how crazy that must be, right? Like everything is new. And then, the mantis very quickly kind of you get from cocoon stage to to adult stage, and where the females become very powerful. And, I just loved kind of this idea of this nymph, of this creature. And a lot of times in my dance, there's a lot of showing and telling and less of being. And I wanted to kind of inhabit this creature rather than talk about the properties of this creature, which is kind of what's more traditional in classical dance. So that was the starting point. The chant itself, the lyrics are lead me from ignorance to knowledge, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. And I just loved how kind of apropos that was, I think, to the moment of the pandemic. The collaboration with Atiba, and you and I had talked about what should this other artist be. We knew it would be fun to have a live collaboration that came together within the span of half a day. And for me, what's so great about being in person together is feeling rhythm. Rhythm cuts across cultures. Rhythm is the beat of life. And so I was really excited about trying to find a musician, and in particular a hand drummer, because that drum is just such a, you feel it in your chest. And I kind of ached for that because I'd collaborated with drummers in the past, and I just love it. It's such a great match to my form, which is highly rhythmic as well. So that was the starting point. It was new for both of us. We hadn't met except for a few hours before the show. And we just hit it off really well. He's a master in his craft. I've been doing what I've been doing for 30, 40 years. So it was natural. Rhythmic languages across the world have similar traditions, and there's this call and response that's common in a lot of world music forms. And that was our starting point. When we went up to the studio and rehearsed, we said, all right, let's just do a little bit of call and response. And he'd throw out some rhythms and I'd mirror them and vice versa. And we just kind of built it from there.
Yeah, thank you. Tiffany, do you want to talk a little bit about, I assume Helen spoke a little bit about her starting point for this dance.
Yeah, again, I don't want to be the voice of Helen, but I would love to communicate what she communicated to us at the beginning of the process. So she began Flight Distance 1, which is the first piece that of, I believe, 4 flight distance pieces that she ended up creating when she was in grad school. And she was in New York a lot then, and so she began to really feel the connection of people, and also the times when she really wanted space from people as well. And so Flight Distance 1, I'm going to read a quote. So she said that flight distance is a term used to describe the space one places between themselves and others. So we also talked about how this piece, even though you guys decided to have this piece in the dance festival before the pandemic, it was very pertinent as talking about us and our proximity to others during the pandemic, having not had that proximity. And so it was going into this process, her starting point of spatial relationship between humans was really on the forefront of our minds. So yeah, I'll leave it there with her.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Well, and a couple of weeks ago, I had the opportunity to interview Helen for our podcast, In Process. That was episode 3. And so, Helen speaks a lot more about the creation of this work and sort of what went into it. So that would be a good way to hear directly from Helen too, more about those ideas. And we did talk a little bit in that conversation about how relevant the subject seemed to become, in the midst of this time where we have been not only separate geographically from each other and isolated, but now as we're starting to navigate space with each other again, how close do we feel safe, or how much distance do we want to put between ourselves and others? And I was really excited to see how that would play out on stage. So thank you for bringing some of that to our conversation tonight, Tiffany. I want to move now into some questions. Some of them are specific to one or more of you, and others are a little more general. If we have folks watching who would like to ask questions, please feel free to put them in the Facebook chat or send them in through the form on the website. But I think I would like to start with a question for Jihan. This is a question from Jiwan Ha. She's wondering, she asked a little bit about the inspiration for your project, which you've talked about already, but could you talk a little more about the meaning of the moon and how that really came to life in your film?
I was definitely inspired by Asian myths. As I mentioned before, I started from Asian mythological stories about the moon. When I searched a reference for my work, humans' daily life has connected to the nature, especially the moon. The lore surrounding moon's phase has ranges from full moons inciting a wolf to the moon's cycle, affecting how we feel and our day-to-day mood. And especially in Korea, we have a ritual to make a wish by gazing at the moon when people have something to wish for traditionally. So furthermore, the people have suggested that for a long time, there is a connection between lunar and menstrual cycle. And some methods even suggesting that fertility and lunar cycle have some sort of a connection. But this is a controversial tale. But my work has focused on the women to express their mystical synchronization of a law of nature. But I needed to get a common sense covering all humankind about the connection between nature and humans' fertility. So Lucina, this is not only the name of my dance theme, but this means goddess of childbirth in ancient Roman religion. So when I found this myths, I became more confident in my work, and I was excited to be able to find a clue to generalize the work between Asian and Western cultures. Yeah.
All right, thank you. Tiffany, this is a question for you. Can you speak at all to whether the choreography in Flight Distance is set, or are the different shapes or interactions between different groups of dancers, does that vary every time it's set? I mean, you can just speak, I guess, to your experience. Is any of it improvised or responsive on stage?
So there are some moments, especially the end, with the pushing and the manipulating of the one dancer, and then when we're on stage left and we move forward and we push back, that is all improvised based on a score. But the beginning, all of that is her movement language that she manipulated with the original cast to create set movements and set shapes. So the movements in the box are set, even though they look very, my first impression was, how are we going to recreate that? It seemed so intricate and so personal to the people dancing. Even me as a dancer for a very long time, I was like, oh, it seems, I don't know. It seemed like a big task. But as she began to give us the score and understand that she created that section with the box in a shower, like in one of those like big communal showers, we found that proximity and the shapes that she gave us really flowed very seamlessly. So really only the end was a score and everything else was set, even though as we moved through it, those interactions became more more naturally reactive to each other. Again, we came into this on a Monday, not knowing anyone in the room, and then performing this on a Saturday. So that was a really lovely experience to hold space for that. But yeah, everything except the very end was all set.
Okay, thank you. This is a little more of a general question. And let's have Gavin and Vanessa answer it first, and then we'll see who else is feeling really interested in tackling it as well. Is there a sort of signature piece of your choreographic process, like something that you almost always do when making a piece? Not necessarily something that has to be in the finished product, but something about the process.
Yeah, I think we've started to realize for ourselves that we can define our processes in 3 different parts, and it's first is explore, the second is refine, and the third is distill. And so if we can sort of approach those parts of it, it's not always that cut and dry, but if we can approach those parts of it or every piece with those parts, then that would be sort of like the signature.
Yeah, and this, to tie into what you're saying, because we are a team, we also have started to define roles within our creative process, which are very loose and sometimes we flip-flop, but broadly speaking, I'm more of the initial concept person and he's more of the making that happen person. I'm like, I have a great idea. Okay, that's it. I don't know how to do it. And then he like figures out how to do it usually. That's becoming more common of a theme for us.
But we walk hand in hand the entire way.
Yeah.
We really are. We're 50-50 on pretty much everything.
Yeah.
Cool. Who else? Virginia, will you talk a little bit about Jan's process and if there are things that you have found sort of signature about her process?
Yeah. So it evolved, of course, as any choreographer would hopefully do. And I danced in her company for about 25 years. So I remember when I first joined, I was jokingly told what to expect in terms of like, there will always be a circle and there will always be this and there will always, and sometimes, yeah, that was actually true. Circles were certainly a theme. We talked about the chance score and not always, but a lot of the time, the way to generate movement material was done through a chance score that she would then heavily craft and mold. But I think she was interested in getting to a unified, cohesive group, but it being important that we were still our own people and our own dancers and that we brought what we brought to the table. And that we then learned from each other and sort of learned to move not only like her, but like one another. So there was a community sort of aspect, which circles tend to remind me of as well. Those are the things that stand out. And 5 short forms toward the end of her life was one of the pieces that she mentioned several times as feeling like it was one of her more successful works. So I think that choosing phrase material from that felt appropriate. And yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Kira or Aparna, either of you feel like you have a signature part of your process?
You know, I don't know that I do. I think every piece or every project is so different that it usually the beginning of things are really different and the way that you get to the end is really different. Sure, there's always some improvisation involved because I feel like for me, I have to improvise to get to the bottom of things. But other than that, it really depends on what's happening, who I'm working with, and what the end result, at least in my mind, is supposed to be. And because folks who know me know that I'm not just a dance person, I'm an interdisciplinary artist. It also depends on, is it for installation? Is it for film? Is it as a performance art piece? Is it, is there a zine involved? So like, or what other pieces of the project are there?
Yeah. Cool.
I don't know that I have a consistent process. I would say musicality is just huge for me. And even when I'm creating music, I kind of think about, you know, broad shapes and really broad brushstrokes and then kind of filling in the details. With a score in mind, I try to move to that music in a different form, actually. So not with classical dance, because I'm so trained. Like my classical brain is, I feel like it's very linear, and it's very confined. And so to expand out of that, which it's, you know, this is new, to try and modernize this form. It's a painful process because it is so codified and it is so tightly woven over hundreds of years. But yeah, I try and kind of just group to the music like I would at a disco or something, right? Like at a dance party. And I try and like feel what shapes my body wants to make, when I'm not thinking about technique. And then I think about how to translate that into classical Indian dance without losing the flavor of certain movements. That's kind of one of the ways. And then sometimes I'll just jam out to like the radio and improv to a totally different musical form. And then depending on like what that was, it inflects how I start to improvise and choreograph to whatever piece it is I'm trying to develop to.
Thank you. I'd love to, you know, open the opportunity for you guys to chat with each other and ask each other questions. So this would be a good time to start thinking about if you have any particular questions for your fellow artists. I'd like to actually follow up, Tiffany, with you. Something you said earlier just about the structure of this project for this cast. You guys came in, I don't know if any of you knew each other previously, but 5 dancers from different parts of the state, working for 5 days to put this piece together. So I'm curious to hear a little bit more about what that experience was like. And also, you know, you had said that for many of you, you had not been dancing in proximity to each other, and this put you in close proximity to each other. What was that like?
So I want to say that Helen was such an amazing, she was an amazing leader, and she allowed us so much space to really explore her movement language. And so going into that room, not knowing who we were, and then having this kind of movement language wash over us, was really great because we got that space to explore what it was like to be in a room together again. And I don't know if Helen is like that all of the time, but I really appreciate that she was like that with us. So not knowing each other, and we were all just so excited to be in that process, that I think there was this like instant trust that happened between all of us very quickly. And if you've watched the piece, you've seen that there's not a lot of like weight sharing or lifting, but there's a lot of very close proximity, or a lot of having to know where you are in space, so that you don't get hit, or so that you don't. And so that was learned very quickly. But I think that was because we were allowed as dancers, even though we were the vessels of her movement language and her choreography, to explore how our own body worked within that movement language. And so for all of us, we were just instantly, we just felt trust, I think, in the room. And I think that was a big point of why Helen is so successful as a choreographer, and because she allows that space And so I think that was a really big deal for us not being in the room with each other. I don't know if I answered your question, but
Yeah.
that was kind of, I think that was my takeaway from the week of just having that space to explore someone's movement language that we did know. So
Thanks for sharing that. Any questions for each other that you'd like to pose?
Vanessa has one.
I do, yeah. This is for Anne and Virginia. I'm curious what it was like if you could talk a little more about working with such a range of age, and like if that affected, I guess this is for Virginia, if that affected your nerves or your like young energy backstage can be awesome, or it can be a lot. I know for us, having not performed in a while, the first time we came back to the stage after the pandemic, I kind of felt like a kid all over again. And I was like, oh man, there are my teenage nerves all over again, So I was just curious what that was like working with that age range.
Anne, do you want to field that, or you want me to?
Well, I mean, if you do have, if it did affect, the performance of it or the energy backstage, feel free to weigh in on that, because I wasn't part of that.
Yeah. Well, I was at an advantage or disadvantage, depending on how you view it. Because I'm a mom. I have 15, 12, and 8-year-old, but I also teach everything from 4th grade through college students. So my life is intergenerational. And so I'm kind of used to all of that. There were some tongue-in-cheek we called ourselves the old dancers, noticing some things that we probably used to do. I hear you about that energy, but it was just kind of like, that's cute. We're not doing that, but yeah, it didn't really affect the performance though. I thought the younger ones brought great energy and were very professional for what they were doing. Yeah.
And in terms of the process, we went on a little journey with this process, starting it really just with students, and maybe 10 or 11 students, ranging. I mean, when we first started that process, the youngest that was learning was 7, through like 16 maybe. So a big range, and it was really fun to get to see the different ways that they absorbed the information and were able to process it. We also were rehearsing at that time completely over Zoom, which was a challenge that they really rose to. And then, as we came into this second part of the process, and we really focused, we had just 2 of our more advanced students as part of this process, and then some of our recent alumni who have just recently graduated from college. It was, I don't know, I don't think I've stepped outside the process enough to reflect completely on that age range, beyond the fact that it felt really exciting to have everybody in the same space in the room, and to know what our students were getting out of this, to be able to work with these professionals of a range of ages, and to see the whole cast together and feel like, wow, like everybody's really like gelling, yes, there's a range of ages and experience, but I felt like as a cast, there was a lot of cohesion as well.
Yeah, and I don't know if this bears on it or not, but I thought it was interesting in terms of just facts that there were 2 students, 3 young professionals, and 4 company members. So I don't know if that brought any balance or temper to it, but and neither here nor there, just an interesting fact that I thought gave it a sort of pyramid effect.
Yeah. Other questions for each other?
Kara, I was born and raised in Minnesota, and I don't think I got warm in my 18 years there. What was the temperature like of that lake?
It was dawn in July. It was cold, and it took
Yeah.
me hours to get warm after we finished filming. So I've never made a screen dance and been like, oh, that was such a comfortable experience. Every time I make a screen dance, I'm like, this is so uncomfortable. Why do I do this? Oh, because we get to make, I don't know. Yeah, it was cold.
Beautiful, but cold. Yeah.
We are also very interested in the lake. It seems like it's very shallow, like you could sort of walk all the way across it. That's pretty. Can you speak to that? What that was like?
Yeah,
It
that was
seems like
blowing
there's
my
this
mind.
like vastness to
It's a sandbar
experience.
for a pretty good bit. So at the end, when I'm walking, that's actually the distance that you can walk out before it drops off. So you do get a pretty good amount of space where it is about hip height water, and it's very clear. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a magical space.
Aparna, I wonder if you could talk a little bit, maybe talk a little bit about how you and Atiba, you know, you said you started with that call and response framework. How did you make decisions about where to go with that?
Yeah, we kind of started backwards. We didn't know if we wanted to end big or end kind of with an intense focus and small. When we learned from you that we were going to close out the show, we decided to end big. So we knew where we were going. And then, yeah, the call and response was really kind of the start of our practice, just to kind of get a feel for each other's um, tendencies and interests. And then, you know, I wanted him to kind of, at the end of my solo, I wanted to end really quietly and have him kind of shock the audience with this huge drum hit, because I just love the contrast. And so he started with a solo, and I thought I'd just kind of creep in there. And as we started rehearsing, he has such a big personality and brings a lot of humor, which was awesome, to the stage. And so that was just such a delightful element to kind of have in there. So I wanted to play with that as well. And so I'd kind of like creep in there as he was, doing his drumming, and just kind of add a little bit of a bell. And it started there. It was just it was the structured improv, so we didn't fix anything up until the call and response from that entrance. After the call and response, Atiba wanted to, he had in mind, circling each other, which I really liked. Just kind of it's a visual dialogue, really, since we were so kind of in the same plane. And so we just kind of thought about, after the call and response, we wanted the energy to really grow and the space to grow. And so we started with a big circle that kind of got smaller and smaller and smaller. Again, improvised. We didn't know what I didn't know what he was playing. He didn't know what I was dancing. But I thought it would be fun for us to kind of end at the same pose. And there's a call, there's like a rhythmic call that's done in djembe. And so I was listening for that call. And when he did that call, I knew that we were going to kind of hit the ending pose then. So, we kind of, it was like there were bits that we wanted to hit throughout. And we kind of had some sense of how we'd get there, but it was also quite free flowing in between, which was fun. And that moment where actually in the middle of the call and response where he just stops, like that actually happened in rehearsal. We were kind of going through the call and response, and then I just threw out that rhythm, and he just kind of stopped, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna go with this. And I think he was just kind of processing And he's like, oh, he's like, I'm gonna give that to you. I'm gonna do that in the show. So it was actually like a real reaction. But then, he knew we knew it would kind of have this comedic effect as well. So that was a fun thing to just kind of bring.
That sounds like such I mean, you just said such a fun collaboration in that moment.
Yeah, it was awesome. It surprised me because I'm a researcher also. Like I things are controlled a lot in my in my regular world, and improvisation is something that I've kind of reintroduced to this form. It existed, 200 years ago, but it's not part of the classical tradition, and it's a playfulness that I've tried to bring into it, but it makes me nervous each time because, nobody wants to stage jump. Like you want to ensure the success of your improvisation. So yeah, I was a little bit nervous because we hadn't met really at all, and I hadn't seen him play. Like he recorded a little clip for me of like 4 rhythms just so I could hear kind of the rhythms that he wanted to maybe bring to it. But yeah, I was really happy with how quickly it came together, and it was great.
Yeah, I was really pleased with that too. And I know you and I had some conversations along the way about that tension between like the excitement of having things just happen in the space, in the moment, and wanting to plan them enough to be sure that whatever that happening is going to be really fun and interesting to watch. And I'm really glad it seemed to flow very smoothly to get to that place.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a blast.
Great. Well, we have a question here for Jihan. Does any of the audio in your film come from nature or have direct connections to the themes you've been working with? It was really striking sound and a little intimidating at times. And this person is curious how you chose those sounds.
When I chose the music for my dance film, the rhythm is very important to me, because the synchronization between my movements and music is essential to arouse the empathy for audiences, I think. So the rhythm, and then the rhythm was derived from a Korean traditional instrument. So the rhythm was created by Gomungo. This is a Korean traditional instrument. So this is so important to me to emphasize my movements more sparkling. So yeah.
But none of the sounds were natural, like from the natural world. It was the traditional instruments.
Yes, the traditional instrument, it was much more important to me. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Well, I am curious to hear from all of you. What types of things do you do to keep yourself motivated as an artist and or choreographer? Let's start with you, Tiffany. I know I didn't give you much time to think about that.
I know, that's fine. I just go around in a circle anyway. For me, it's a daily practice. So even if I'm not dancing per se, I always take a few moments a day to think in my artistic mind. I'm a mother too, so I feel like I have to find that, like really decide to carve out that time. And then when I moved up to North Carolina during the pandemic, moved away from the company that I created and all of the people I knew, I decided to start this daily practice of, I usually do it when I'm walking. So I have this walking ritual where I start to think think of choreography in my brain, and I start to think of these ideas, and then when I have those moments to actually have space to move, then I can delve into them more. But they're there, and then I journal. So I've been less intentional in my life, but now I'm much more intentional about this, because I know myself, and if I don't have this in my life, I wither.
Mm,
So as the pandemic and as moving, I've created this intentional process for myself right now.
thank you. Kara, what about you?
Much like Tiffany just said, I try to dip into my work every day, whatever that looks like. And I tell my students, touch your work every day. It might look different from day to day. Maybe sometimes you're reading something, maybe sometimes you're watching something, sometimes you're in the studio. But I think the motivation piece, though, just comes from never stopping loving making art, right? You're motivated because you love what you do. And as long as you love what you do, you'll never be unmotivated, at least not unmotivated enough not to return to something, even if you're frustrated, right? And so some of it is just about, even when things get a little hard, reminding yourself why you come to it and why you love it so much, and what about it gets you up in the morning, right?
Thank you. Gavin and Vanessa, what about you? What do you do to keep yourself motivated?
Well, I don't know if this is necessarily to keep me motivated, but inspired. I'm really inspired by just watching, like people watching, and traveling, and just experiencing the things that are very much outside of my bubble is really important to me, because I tend to come up with creative ideas when I have a narrative and like some sort of very specific character in my mind. Even if it doesn't transpire into like a very obvious narrative piece, it usually starts there in my brain. Like this very complex story based on like somebody I saw maybe like at an airport or something. I don't know, that kind of thing. So that's where a lot of my seeds for inspiration come from. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm just very similar, but inspiration strikes when it strikes, and you have to listen to it. And so in order for me to stay motivated, I try to capture that inspiration through video or writing it down. And then the practice comes in exploring those ideas, basically. And like, does it speak to me now when I come back to it? And if not, then that's fine, but it might give me an idea for something else. And so like, that's kind of how I keep that motivation going, is like knowing this is a moment when I'm inspired and I need to capture this moment somehow so that I can return to it whenever I have space to like really work on it and think about it. Yeah, it's sort of part of that process that we just defined before, honing that process that we said was our sort of signature
Method.
What about you, Aparna?
I would say I gain inspiration from a lot of other art forms. It could be going to a museum and just seeing, other works of art, whether it's paintings or sculpture. Going to a music concert makes me miss the stage, of course. But I think it's important to miss dance. So I actually, contrary to Kara and Tiffany, I let myself miss it sometimes and step away. And make sure that I'm, it's still there, that ache to have to move. I'll stay in shape in other ways by running and lifting weights and things like that. But I want to make sure that my body really kind of wants that dance. And of course, as you age, you have to give yourself a break as well. So that helps too. But yeah, I just make sure that it's always something I want to be doing, not have to be doing.
Mm-hmm. Jihan, do you want to go next?
My motivation is, I think, the exploration of myself. What is my curiosity? Why do I keep doing? Or what is the most interesting point to discuss with others? And then mostly my process of choreography is research to find the proper references. Is not limited on book. It can be a movie, music, or other form of art. Yeah, this. And then I start to keep thinking about what is the proper platform to deliver my message to other people or audiences. Yeah.
Thank you. And Virginia.
So it's funny, I was thinking about what my answer might be, and then I'm hearing my answer and what everybody else is saying that really resonates. I think I may not be particularly good at this, but trying to find balance throughout my entire life, whether that be family life, dance life. I'm fortunate to be very plugged in a dance way, and I find that more and more, maybe as I age, I'm more in a teacher role than I used to be, so I'm giving a lot more than I used to and not necessarily receiving or being fed as I once was. And so again, I come back to striking that balance and maybe being more open and listening, and as I heard someone else say, waiting for the call or whatever that might be, like that push, waiting for it to not be forced, but arrive, and take it a little more slowly and naturally, if you will. So yeah, I feel what everybody was saying, for sure.
Yeah. Well, as we kind of close and wrap up this conversation, I'd love to offer the opportunity for you to share what's coming up next for you. You know, it's been amazing for me to get to see many of you in person with our live show, and now here getting to talk to you again. What's coming up for you? Kara, why don't you start us?
Yeah, I just finished working on a dance film with a group of students here at the University of Akron, where I'm visiting for the year. So we're premiering that in November, and just finishing up a couple of writing projects and figuring out what I want to do in the spring. So,
Tiffany, what's next for you?
So I am continuing to curate a dance film festival from where I was living before in Jacksonville, Florida. So I'm curating that currently, the Jacksonville Dance Film Festival. So I'm looking at a lot of dance films. But then I'm also starting a process with a local musician to start, it'll start as a solo, but I'm hoping not for it not to continue as a solo. I'm hoping to bring in other people into create. So I'm just kind of like at the beginning seeds of that, which is pretty exciting and scary at the same time.
Nice. Virginia, what's next for you?
I guess what's on my mind is the holiday season coming up. We have some traditional things we participate in. My husband and I dance together in some events, and they're coming back. They didn't, exist last year. And then we produce an original ballet that's intergenerational. It involves the students of our academy, hired professionals, and then some guest community performers. So another intergenerational experience, but it feels really special yet strange because the last time we did it was December 19, and here it is December 21, and it is something we do every other year, so we didn't miss it last year. So it's just this weird like bubble thing that we produce at Elon University, and so we're fortunate to not have missed that experience, but it also feels a little
we're in a different
Um,
place this year than we were in 2019.
we are in a different place, and navigating requirements and
Yeah.
compliance those requirements.
Yeah. Jihan, what's next for you?
I'm going to trim my dance film Lucina. Then, if I can, I have a plan to submit to another dance film festival. And furthermore, another subject is in my mind. I think it could be a family story from grand ancestor to baby generation. So I'm trying to keep moving. Yeah.
Great, thank you. Aparna, what's next for you?
I'm working on an extended version of the Nymphosis piece. There's more music that was developed, so kind of finishing the dance for that. And then just thinking about more creative ways filmically to let audiences get closer to this dance form. I really did like the theater and how close the audience was to us. You know, I want them even more so. And so just thinking of creative ways and convincing my husband to help.
Great. And Gavin and Vanessa, what's coming up for you?
Yeah, we are. We're going to be working on a project with a friend who's producing a contemporary Nutcracker in New Mexico in December, which is exciting for us. And then we will come back and produce our own show in January. And that's also very exciting and not child friendly. Which is, you know, going from Nutcracker to that is just a nice contrast. And then we'll be finding ways to, we're hoping to start a creative summer intensive that's focused on the creation and craft of dance this summer. And we don't have details on that yet, but we are working toward that.
Will that be in the Asheville area?
Yeah.
It will, yeah.
That sounds exciting. Yeah, I'll look forward to more details about that as they emerge.
For sure, we'll let you know.
Well, I want to thank all of you so much for joining us tonight and chatting about your process and about, you know, what it was like to be a part of this performance. It's been a really special season for me as well to you know, we started this season so long ago, it feels like, and it's nice to finally feel like we're able to celebrate this 30th anniversary. So thank you so much for being a part of that. Thanks to our viewers tonight and for everybody who has who attended our October 2nd performance. And again, that performance is streaming virtually now through November 29th, and information about tickets and how to watch are on our website. Thank you to our sponsors and our donors. And if you'd like to, if anybody out there watching would like to make a gift to help support the festival and the work we do to nurture and present North Carolina artists, you can text NCDF 30 to 44321 or visit our website at danceproject.org. Thank you everyone for joining us tonight, and we hope to see you at future events, either live or virtual, and have a great night.